Hello, and welcome to the sixth meeting of the Globe and Mail Craft Club. I'm Jana Pruden. I'm a reporter at the Globe and Mail. I usually write about crime and I write long features and sometimes breaking news. And because these are strange times, right now I'm also hosting a craft club. Here we are already on our sixth meeting of 10. I can't believe we're this far along. Hello to all of you regulars who are joining us. Again, it's wonderful to see you, and to people who may be joining us for the first time. A couple of reminders, this class will be available after, and all of our previous classes are available. You can find links on our Facebook page. You can also, we have a very handy web address that's tgam.ca/craft club, and you can find all of our previous classes as well as information about the classes that we have yet to come. You can also sign up for our parenting and relationship newsletter, which is a fantastic newsletter, and we'll have reminders about the classes, supply lists, all the links you need, and introductions to the people who are teaching the classes to come. Also, you should subscribe to the Globe and Mail. I have to say that. The Globe pays me to do this as well as my other journalism. So we always have great subscription deals. So I'm just going to put that plug in there as well. These classes are, of course, free for everyone. Share them with your friends, share them with your family, and say hi. We love hearing where you're from on the Facebook group. I love seeing the work that you're doing, whether it's work that you've done based on the classes, other projects that you're working on. As I said, this is our 6th out of 10 to come. We have on April 13th, Paper Flowers with Chantal Larocque from New Brunswick, which I'm so excited about. She makes the most beautiful paper flowers. After that, by popular demand, we're going to be doing watercolor and miniatures, and then we're going to have a very, very special final class on May 25th. So stay tuned, and I'd love to see what you're doing. Today, I'm so pleased to be here with Danielle Sweeney of Design in Words. Danielle is a really brilliant calligrapher, artist, letterer. I love writing. My whole career is writing. And today, Danielle is going to have quite a challenge on her hands. Hello, Danielle.
Hi, Jenna. I am ready for the challenge. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I just want to show people, this is my notebook. I use paper notebooks all the time. So this is mine I'm putting down here of the interview that I did with you. This is what my handwriting looks like. And through the years, I always wanted to have beautiful handwriting like I see behind you on the wall. And I have never achieved it, but you promised me that it's possible.
I promise you that, you know what we're going to do today, this is really, really key. I promise you that your handwriting is going to look like your handwriting, but even better. So I'm not asking you to do my handwriting, and I really want to make that clear. I love calligraphy. I teach calligraphy and brush script and all that sort of stuff, but today we're making your handwriting look awesome. So, I mean, if you look at the notes that I have sitting around me right now, I'm going to say that they're on par with your notebook, like in all fairness. But when we do it on the worksheets, or if you don't have the worksheets just on the paper, we're going to be working with your own handwriting. And I've got some really, really fun tips and tricks to help people get a handle on the special parts of their handwriting. Because there's something really lovely about, seeing you think about a handwritten note from your mom or from your grandma. And it's that's the important thing. It's not looking like everybody else's. So that's what we're going to be focusing on.
That's so true. Sometimes you may be going through something, you find a recipe that was written by your mother, your grandmother, your father, and those are some of the most special. Recently, I found a letter that my grandfather had written, and just seeing his penmanship really was a special experience.
It really is. It's a different world, and I think too when we look at past generations, much more so than kids. I've got a 7-year-old growing up now. Penmanship was such a big part of education, and so I think about my great granny who was from the Czech Republic and lived with us for a long time. And every morning she would sit with her fountain pen. Actually, I have the pen right here that I use all the time, and she would sit with her fountain pen and she would write these letters, and her script was so beautiful. And so that's really what I love about the handwriting is that it's your personality on a page, which you don't get to see very often.
I mean, there was this idea for a while that nobody would ever write anything by hand. Everything's going to be dictated or typed, but here we are doing a handwriting class. Do you ever have people to say that to you? Oh, no one's going to handwrite? What
all
do you
the
say?
time, all the time. It drives me crazy. There's actually, and this is something I've known for a long time, because there have been studies about this over the last few years. But recently, the University of Tokyo undertook a study on handwriting compared to typing, and so it didn't differentiate, as far as I understand, between printing and script, like cursive style writing, but it did between typing and writing. And there's something about the conceptualizing of a word in your mind and then your hand writing it that includes these neurological functions that aren't really found in. I mean, I don't even know of very many other activities at all that we do through the course of our lives. So, what that does is it creates neurological pathways that can't be created any other way. So, what that boils down to is that you're going to get smarter in the next hour and a half by handwriting. And clearly, you're very smart already because you handwrite all the time.
Okay, well, that's perfect. You've given us a list of supplies, and I appreciate there was some things that hopefully most of us just have at home, and then some special things for people like me who went to their favorite art supply store, the Gilded Rabbit in Edmonton,
Amazing.
and couldn't resist the pens. So tell me what kind of supplies we'll be working with today.
So we work with with this things like hand lettering. It's really nice to use what you have at hand. Although I am a sucker for lovely pens and all the accoutrements you can possibly have. You can see those everywhere. But we are going to be working with really simple tools. So I have a Sharpie here. I'm going to use a Sharpie because I find it's really easy for viewers to see on the page. But any sort of felt tip pen in any color is totally fine. So I'm going to use a Sharpie. I do have this uni pen, and then I also have an Artline pen. Any of these are great. You can also use a pencil. We will be going to pens later on because I do want to do some color effects, and that works a little bit better without the smudging of a pencil. So I just have a basic lead pencil. I don't have a mechanical pencil with me, but typically I like to use a lead pencil. We'll be doing a transferring technique a little bit later that works really, really well with just this is my daughter's sparkly pencil. So we're going to use that. I have just a simple eraser. Any kind, hand eraser is great. I have a fancy roller ruler because I, like you, Jana, do like to go to the art store and go bananas. But any old ruler is going to help.
I have a ruler that seems to have been stolen from someone whose last name is Walker. I only assume that's from some newsroom or maybe back in art school that someone put his name on there, and
there's someone watching this feed right now who's like, that's my ruler.
My ruler.
So a couple of the other things, I have a bunch of Sharpies in different colors. These are stolen from my daughter. I have some really fancy, beautiful twin tip art Tombow pens here, which are the Cadillac of brush markers. And they're really fun, but equally lovely and something that you can buy at the art store for about $10, sometimes even at the dollar shop. These Stettler double-ended watercolor brush pens. You don't need the brush pens, but watercolor pens are super because you can obviously mix them with water, and they're super with blending as well. So those are a really fun option to have.
Oh, great.
And there's one other secret tool that I have to add. And this is one of these things that a lot of people have lying around in their shed. And it is a laser level.
Oh.
Do you know how these work? So if you're using any dark paper, instead of drawing lines on it, you can use your laser.
Oh,
and if you have there we go. So that's a really fun tip. And a lot of people do just have these lying around, but if you do have one, you can take it from the shed or the basement into your craft cupboard and add it in for lettering. But that's pretty much it. Just really, really simple things. Metallic pens, white pens, chalk markers, things like that are all also super, but you don't need them. You can just use the basics.
Okay, that's wonderful. And of course, we do have your workbook that was available to download. If you are at home and don't have it, don't worry about that at all, but it is available. It'll stay up. That's one of those things you can find at tjam.ca/craft club and download it for later as you're practicing. Because I assume even if we will get smarter this hour and a half, we won't necessarily become brilliant hand letterers in this period.
Bit by bit, right? Rome wasn't built in a day.
Okay.
But I will do everything also on blank paper. So if you don't have access to the workbook, if you haven't printed it, I'll also show you how to do everything on plain paper. So no worries at all.
Okay, wonderful. So how do we get started?
Great. So the first thing we're going to do is, if you do have the hand lettering workshop, the intro to hand lettering page, we'll get started on that one. And if you don't, I'll just get you to grab a piece of blank paper, or if you have lined paper handy, that's awesome too. If you have some blank paper, just draw a few lines. You're going to draw 4 lines, as equally spaced as you can, not that big a deal. And we are going to use I'm not going to say our best handwriting, but you're going to use some nice handwriting, kind of the best example of your handwriting that you can, whether that's printing or handwriting, but as if you were writing a special note to somebody is what we're going to focus on. So I'm going to use my Sharpie here, and we're just going to copy down this sentence: "The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog," just so we can use all the letters in the alphabet. And one thing I'll mention is that this little X here, can you see that on your worksheet? Do you have the worksheet
Yes.
there, Jana?
Yeah,
So
I sure do.
Great. So I'll just point that out. So what we do is with this is called the X height, and this is where the majority of your letters sit when you're handwriting, especially when you're using lowercase letters. So I might write, my lowercase letters will sit in here. Anything that goes above, so up here, is called an ascender. And I'll use these terms a little bit. So I just want to make sure I explain them. Normally I just go dive into it and people don't know what the heck I'm talking about. And then the ones that go down here are called descenders. So if you are using the guidelines, just for your own sake, just try and keep the majority of your lowercase letters in that X height column. So just go ahead and write that sentence out.
Okay, so we're really going back to Miss Dixon, grade 2 Mulvey School in Winnipeg. And I should be doing it in my nicest handwriting. That's what
in your nicest, not in your I'm taking notes fast script.
And full-on handwriting, not a mixture of printing and handwriting, but the way.
Nope, it can be whatever. Nope, it can be whatever you like. So if you typically, however you'd write a nice note. So if you generally write a cursive note, you can do it in cursive. Otherwise, if you print, you can print. So up to you.
Okay.
As usual, I've run out of space because I like to go big.
Of course, I'm going to run out of space as well.
I know. So I apologize if you run out of space. Don't worry, it's not the end of the world. This is just an exercise to point out a couple things.
Okay.
Good things. Okay, great. So now that we've done that, if you have another color, awesome, or just another, you can even use a pencil. What I want you to do, and I want you to be nice to yourselves because this is really key. I want you to go through what you've written and just circle the things that stand out to you that you like about your handwriting or that are a bit of a signature. So I don't necessarily always like it, but I always make a gigantic crossbar on my T. I am like over the top with this crossbar. So whenever I do a T, I do a big crossbar. I like that I usually do kind of a flourished F in a cursive style. So that's something I like. I have this little loop on my S, and I do a big loop on my O.
Okay, so things that we like.
Things that you like. Be nice.
Okay.
Things that are characteristic of you.
Can you pick out some things from me?
I am looking here. I like the way your Z goes down. And look at that Y. I reckon that's a real characteristic of your hand lettering, where the second leg of your Y dips down lower than the first. So the first part of the U, I reckon you probably do that a lot, do you? When you handwrite?
I have no clue. Possibly.
Now you're going to notice these things, right? And I also see, so you have a cursive style S as well, which has a little tail off it, which is quite nice.
Okay.
And then look you have a really stylized V as well.
V, right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are some cool kind of characteristics.
Okay.
So the purpose of this is to, when you are writing or when you're, I like to think of when we're doing hand lettering as drawing letters rather than writing letters, because then we put a little bit more attention to how the shape of the letters looks. But with these things that you have, these characteristics, and also I'll notice your capital T as well, because you probably use that quite a bit. You also swoop off to the left with the T, which is really lovely. And that goes into that old school cursive style T, right?
Miss
so
Dixon.
Maybe, so those are, Miss Dixon, there you go. So those are some really lovely characteristics that you can keep as you roll through doing kind of more stylized or more focused lettering.
Okay.
And those are things that then may become signatures for you over time. They don't have to be, but it is kind of a nice thing for you to see. And you'll notice that I always do this great big T now. I probably didn't start that way when, it was Miss Sidnell in grade 3 in Toronto. Yeah. If she's over here somewhere, Miss Sidnell, thanks, lady. But they certainly weren't like that when she taught me. Oh my God, I haven't said that name in years. So that's a really fun place to start. And it is, it goes back to that idea of analyzing our letters and looking at letters like a drawing. So the same way that we would if we were painting, or with the embroidery class where you're looking at the individual stitches as part of a whole, the same thing goes down with handwriting. So the individual strokes become part of a whole word picture.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. So then am I just done? I know how to do calligraphy now?
Yeah. Thanks for coming. We're done. Have a great night. Let's go on to the next page. And again, if you just have blank paper, totally fine. What we're going to do is we're going to have a little play around and see how different elements affect how words look. So I'm going to go back to my black Sharpie here. And what I'd like you to do is we'll play around with a few different, we can go from printing to cursive, back and forth, whatever you think, but with the word that you choose in your mind. So choose one word. It can be anything. Probably best not a name, I should say that. I'm going to choose the word fire.
Okay.
And I'm going to write it here. So again, making note of my X height. So for example, with the spacing, we're going to think about the different gaps between the letters. And what we can think about here is if we write fire, so I'm going to do it in kind of a really lazy style calligraphy. So if we write fire like this, the feeling that it evokes is, a glass of wine by the fire. It's really relaxing. It's kind of lazy. There's a really kind of luxurious feel to it versus if we write fire like that.
Mm.
So have a little play around here with spacing. Then again, with angle, we think about if we write, there's a couple of lines for each one, but if we write fire, let me think what we'll do here. Here we go. If we write fast on an angle versus fast in a really loopy, straight up cursive, it changes the meaning of the word quite distinctly.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to say that second one does look like fart a little bit.
My daughter would love that you just said that. I'm just putting that out there.
Am I allowed to say fart on a live stream? I don't know, but
you just did. There we go. We've now lowered the level.
Exactly. Okay, so you promised we were going to get smarter, and
I did.
So far it's not looking great, but
well, we're going up from here. I'll explain the last one, and then I'll let you have a little go. But relationship is kind of an interesting one. So if we go back to our quick brown fox over here, and we look a little bit at our style again, with my style, because I used a cursive, all of my letters connect. Relationship is where we're looking at how the letters connect to one another. So for instance, as I said, my ascenders are usually quite big. They're really overblown. So the relationship of my letters here, I'll go back to just use fire again. I might make my F cover over my whole word. The other thing we can do is if we're thinking about a fire in terms of something really playful, like a sparkler or something along those lines, we can, rather than just using the X height as it is, we can kind of what's called bounce the baseline. So the baseline, so where the bottom of the X line right here, that actually moves around. So it's the relationship of the letters to one another. Are they connected? Are they not connected? How do they move together? Okay. So have a little play with a few of those, and we'll see how we get.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm going to start, but before I do, I'm just going to read some comments that are coming in. Okay. From Stella Trainer, I'm old enough that I actually had penmanship class in high school.
Stella, bless your heart. I wish I did too. I'm old enough. I just didn't have them.
Right. I don't think we had it in high school. I definitely remember specifically Miss Dixon. She used to throw chalk at us, or me. So she stands out in my mind. There was probably some other teachers in there as well. Michelle Rule saying hello from Kelowna. Hi, Michelle.
Oh, awesome.
We have
Hello.
Sherry from Nanaimo and Bella from Oakville, Joanne from Sarnia. Hello, everybody. So here's Charlie Myers. My writing sucks. This is already helping. So me and Charlie
Oh, great, Charlie.
practice. I'm going to pick the word newspaper because I love newspapers. So I'm going to try this spacing, and you're saying I should just
have a play around with the space of letters. So really draw it out, even if you, I'll just add in a few, I'll do this on, again, if you're just using plain paper, I'll just shift over to some plain paper. So if we're writing newspaper and we want to do kind of a lazy Sunday morning newspaper, in my script, I might do something along these lines.
Oh, that looks, but everything you write looks amazing. I'm not sure about mine so far. Okay, I like this lazy one. I'm going to try this lazy, just.
It feels really strange to do because normally we're doing things really quickly, especially with our handwriting, especially you, I imagine, while you're learning and listening to people and taking notes on things in the courtroom.
Yeah, it gets, I'll blame it on my speed. My incredible speed and my dedication to accuracy. I like your, okay. So I've cheated a little. I went up and, increased my P a little bit.
I love it. That's a good cursive P. So if we're going to go with Stella, who learned penmanship, she probably learned American penmanship because that's what was taught in Canada up until, well, I shouldn't say I wasn't taught it, but I was taught that in the mid 80s. And it kind of stopped. But if we were doing that, we're doing kind of a very quick, right? And the idea with that was that you could write, I'm writing it really slowly, but that you could write it really, really quickly. And it was done initially with a dip nib and ink. And it was quite amazing. You never took your pen off the page.
I always remember that capital N was like a big, that was a good one. That was fun. Capital S.
Yeah. And then if you think about, if you make those into part of your writing.
Right. See, look how nice that is. I'm embroidering all of these. I'll just grab some, make embroidery transfers, embroider them.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Okay, so I'm going to try one of those big. So you were talking about how, I think this is when we spoke privately, that or in advance of this, that you were drawn to this. You found this sort of meditative aspect of handwriting and how enjoyable it was to just spend time writing. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you enjoy about calligraphy? And
yeah, absolutely. It really, as you can see, and as we've just been talking about, saying that because we write quickly, that we don't necessarily pay attention to how we write. We pay attention to what we write, but not how we write. So for me, and I'm a hand writer, I'm all analog. I was joking about my Nana hobbies. I have a day timer that I write my appointments in. But when we go back to something like calligraphy, particularly with like a pointed pen calligraphy or a dip ink calligraphy, we have to slow down because the tools don't allow us to write quickly. So that's where that idea of drawing letters comes from. So you dip your ink, you kind of tap it off, you go to the page, and you can't write more than a few strokes without having to redip your pen. So the idea is that you really, really have to slow down and almost go with your breath. So rather than writing, 15 lines in, a few minutes, it might take you 15 minutes to write those 2 lines. A simple 5x7 envelope can take me 20 minutes to complete, just to make sure we're doing everything really, really slowly. So there's that meditative aspect that, I find that I'm not great at meditating. I can't sit still. I tend to get quite anxious, but because it's really active, I find it's a really, really great way to slow down, to actually look at what you're doing and put a lot of thought and love into the letters that you write. So this idea, we were talking about this kind of snail mail revolution, and people are writing letters again, and it's so exciting to get something in the mail that's handwritten. So maybe that's a challenge for us all. Maybe we can all write a letter to someone after this class. We're going to do some envelope writing towards the end. So maybe we can do that as a goal.
Okay, I love that. I have a new pen pal for the first time since I was 12. So she sends me really lovely things. Okay, I'm having a problem.
Okay.
That once I start writing, it's so automatic that my brain shuts off, and then I just write essentially in my normal messy newspaper writing. So
Okay,
I'm going to try to be a little more careful here.
I have a good one for you. So now we all know someone, I don't know if someone out there knows the word for it, but the filler text when there's a website. I know lorem ipsum,
Yes.
yes.
Mhm.
So write a few of those words. So they're actually nonsense words. So your brain isn't going ahead of you and going, I is spelled like this.
Right.
So a couple of nonsense words, or even, we can write something with some letters that don't all go together. But the idea with this then, again, and it's actually fantastic to write. I used to live in the Netherlands, and I would do all these crazy Dutch addresses, which have, if anyone speaks Dutch out there, the letters that go together are kind of bananas. And I would have to look at each letter because it wasn't like writing, Smith Street. It
Right.
was, something else completely mad. So you really have to pay attention to it, and your brain can't take over. So that's helpful.
Right. So a couple more comments.
Okay.
Thanita Sky, I so apologize if I'm mispronouncing anybody's name here, says calligraphy's been her new favorite hobby. So relaxing.
Fantastic.
Here, I think we're really finding how many of these hobbies are so relaxing, so meditative, and also productive. Because at the end, you have an envelope or a pillowcase you've embroidered, or whatever the case may be.
The embroidery's been amazing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Question from MT Fabri or Fabris. I just rediscovered fountain pens. Any tips?
Fantastic. Do you know, to be honest, I'm only just discovering fountain pens myself. I don't know too much about them. I do know that the fountain pen that I was using, I think I was showing you before, this is my granny's pen. I did notice it was getting a little bit gluggy. So I and I don't know if there's any fountain pen aficionados out there. I just left it overnight in a bath of a tiny bit of dish soap and some warm water, and it cleared out the nib. So that really helped. I do love it though, but if anyone has any tips out there, I would love to hear them. So share away. So you and I both. They're really fun. And you feel really fancy when you go to pull out your pen and you're like, here I am with my fountain pen. I feel very important.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so amazing that you have your grandmother's pen. I love that.
It's a neat thing to have. I cherish it. That's for sure.
So I think we're seeing the various versions of my poor handwriting. And should we be moving on, or should I?
Was just about to say, no, why don't we grow on? And we're going to do play around a little bit with the weight of the letters. Now, the word calligraphy, and I apologize for anyone who speaks Greek out there that I will not say it in Greek because I'll probably murder the word. But calligraphy comes from the Greek, and it means beautiful writing. So what we think about when we think about beautiful writing is rhythm, balance, and shape. So we're looking at kind of a modern calligraphy style or a contemporary calligraphy style. So the things that we want to think about are those three things. So the balance, the rhythm, and the shape of the letters, but it also needs to be legible, which I think a lot of the time we have this beautiful modern calligraphy and you can see heaps of it on Pinterest, but you can't actually read it. So fine line between beauty and legibility. As we know, I mean, you read your notes, Jana, but probably other people don't have to. But with something like this, especially if we're doing an envelope, it's really, really important. But if we go back to letter balance, I'm actually going to use your name here, Jana. So one of the foundations for calligraphy is that we have, when we do downstroke, so anything where the pen is moving down the page, like this capital J, that is called a downstroke. And the downstrokes, when we use a dip pen, we always add a little bit of extra pressure on the dip pen, and that makes that line nice and thick. So every time you do a downstroke, I want you to thicken up that line ever so slightly. And then you can see I curved around, I did an upstroke, so I'm going to keep that nice and thin. Then I'm going to do an A. And you can actually draw all of these out. Draw out all your letters if you're doing cursive, and I'll also do a printed version so you can see what that looks like. There's my, teacher printing right there. So anywhere where you have a downstroke, I want you to thicken up that letter. So it'll be the front part of the A, the left-hand side of the A, the stem of the A, the stem of the N, if we're writing Jana's name, Again, the left-hand side of the A, and then the left hand, and then the stem of the A over here. Same thing with printing. So we'll thicken down that downstroke, and I'm just coloring it in to make it a little bit bolder.
So that's literally every time we're moving the pen downstroke.
Every time we're moving the pen, yeah, that's exactly what it is. So downstroke, I'll do that here. So the pen's moving down, and that's heavy. And then anywhere where the pen's moving up, it's light. So if I use a slightly finer pen, or I'll actually make it a little bit bigger, and I'll go on just a plain piece of paper here. If I am writing, let's see, what shall I write? I'll write Mike, I'll write that name. So I'm going to do it in a cursive style. So there's an upstroke to go into the M, another upstroke, then down. And those of you who didn't learn cursive, that is a K. I know a lot of my students, when I teach kids, they're like, what the heck is that? I'm like, it's K, back in the olden days. So with the downstrokes here, one of the fun things you can do, and I'll challenge you guys to do this with one of your words, and I'll do a mic this way too on a printed style, just for those of you who are printing, is I'll get you just to draw an extra line for that downstroke. So we won't actually fill it in. We'll leave it open. And it's okay if the lines cross each other a little bit. Does that make sense? So we're just making a little shape there, a little hollow.
And is that for every downstroke again?
For every downstroke again, yeah, just where you'd normally thicken it up. So with things like M's and W's, I usually do the second stroke and make that thicker, and then the fourth stroke. So the same thing with a W. So we'd make that second stroke thicker, and then the last stroke thicker.
So we have a couple questions. Paul is asking if your granny's pen is a cross brand.
It is. Is it a cross or is it a? It's a cross. Yeah.
Good eye there. Very observant note from Paula. Angela is saying, even practicing now has her unsure of how to handwrite the whole alphabet. Oh. So, I don't know if we have time to go over this now, or maybe we can put up a picture of one later that has the full alphabet.
I would be so happy to do that. I'd be so happy to do that. And I can even show the arrows of how I cursive write it, or with my brush script. So that's fun to do.
Okay, that would be awesome. Great question. Yeah. Suzanne says she's using her calligraphy pen tonight that she had when she was 14 years old, many, many years ago.
Oh, how fun.
And she says it does clog up between uses. She dips the nib into a small dish of warm water and it melts the dried up ink. She likes to practice from time to time with templates on Pinterest, and she loves cursive writing.
Awesome. That's, one of the main things you can do. And when I was first learning how to do copperplate and Spencerian and all these really fancy hands in calligraphy, copying is the best way to do it. It's all muscle memory. So as you go slowly and train your hand to move over the letters, it becomes easier and easier. And then your brain starts to remember. So now that we've got our little outlines, how are you going there, Jana? Do you have your outlines? You just doing those?
Yeah, I'm just copying Mike, so I'm not sure what Mike's going to think about this, but
there's a Mike out there somewhere who's loved a lot. So what we'll do is I'm going to show you a couple of just really fun kind of coloring in techniques for this sort of writing. So I'm going to use my Sharpies. Well, I'm going to use my daughter's Sharpies because she very kindly loaned them to me. And I'm going to choose a light color initially. Maybe I'll start with a yellow. And I'm going to color in those gaps with the yellow. So I'm just coloring them all in. And there's so many different ways you can do this, but this is a technique that I particularly like. I think it looks pretty cool. Again, my idea of cool might not be millennial cool, but that's okay. So I've chosen that yellow. You can use any colors. Like I like to use tone on tone colors. So we tend to go analogous in the color wheel. So we'll, go yellow, orange, red, or green, blue, purple, things like that tend to be tone on tone. So my next color that I'll choose is, what should we call this? Mango. I'll go with a mango.
Yeah.
And I'm going What's that?
Clementine?
Oh, I like that. Perfect, Clementine. And then what we'll do is we'll just color in the top half over the yellow that we just did with the Clementine color. It doesn't need to be exactly half. So I don't know if
when
you
you
can
say the top half, meaning that in the area that was yellow, you're going to go over top.
I'm going to go over top. So you can probably see it best with the eye there. You can see it's a little bit trickier to see. It's easier to see, obviously, when you've got it in front of you. It doesn't need to be exact, and you don't need to be too fussy about exactly how it looks. And the best part is if you go outside of the lines, no big deal. It almost looks better because it gets a little bit of a graffiti style effect.
Right. I mean, I think having something that looks handmade is also part of it's. You're not trying to be a font. You're a person.
Type. Exactly. Hand type. That's what it's all about.
Yes. Here's a question coming in from Mare, and she's asking if there's any tips for left-handers. Should left-handers be doing this differently?
You should just stop now. No, I'm kidding. Some of the best calligraphers in the world are left-handers. It is a little bit trickier, especially if you're using dip pens or slicker paper where the ink can't smudge. So a couple of suggestions. If you are what we call an overwriter, where you tend to kind of hook your hand over, and a lot of lefties were taught to do this so they could write at the same angle as right-handers. That makes it a little bit trickier, but one of the things you can do is actually prop up your arm a little bit on something, like whether you have a book or a little, paperweight or something like that, and then write so that your hand actually isn't touching the paper and smudging the ink as you go. That's a really, really good tip. Also, you'll notice that I tend to write with my paper at a 45-degree angle. A lot of people do this. Right-handers, but left-handers often don't. Left-handers, and maybe it was because of the way they learn to write, will often write with their paper really straight up, or even go to that right hand angle. Shift your paper so that you're really comfortable, and use it at that 45-degree angle the other way to make sure it's as comfortable for you as you can go. The last tip I'm going to give you, and this is an awesome calligraphy trick. I don't have a playing card with me, but if you have a playing card or like a coated postcard or piece of paper, a great thing to do is actually put it under your hand. And then that allows your hand to slide across the page rather than get stuck in the ink. Because I know my daughter, who's a lefty, always has ink on the bottom of her hand. But that's a really good way to, keep your hands looking a little bit cleaner. But also it allows you to flow a little bit more smoothly, because as right-handers, we're pulling and lefties are pushing. So it does make it a little bit harder.
That's a great tip. And then you can also be cool and flash your ace of spades or something, after.
Yeah, it can't be the two of hearts or something. It's got to be something cool. Yeah, Queen of Diamonds. I love it. So we'll take our slightly darker, our final color, and we will just do a tiny little swash in the top section, the very maybe top third of our letter, of that gap. I didn't make these terribly big, so I can make these a little bit bigger if we want. I'll make a let's see, I'll do one here, and
And at the bottom point of what you're coloring in, is it just a jagged sort of colored in line, or how do you?
Yeah, you can just make it really jagged. So I've just done a little bigger one there, which I should have done initially, and I apologize for that. So I tend to make mine quite sketchy looking. Right. I just think it looks cool. It gives you that hand-drawn element, which is really effective. And I'll just do this again here so you can see it a little bit more clearly. It's hard when you're used to doing everything so small to all of a sudden go big. So I apologize for my little teeny drawings here. So I'm making this, you can see with the orange here, I'm making it quite sketchy down the bottom. And you can even just, even drag lines down so it's not super clean. Right. And then with the red, I might just do, and the larger one, I might just do a little, slash on the red.
Right. Now this definitely reminds me of school. This is more junior high, writing someone's name. It was probably Michael J. Fox. Maybe I was just calling him Mike, or
Kurt Cameron, I think. Mrs. Cameron, that was a big one, right?
Absolutely. Mrs. J. Fox.
So this, just going back to the colors, like this is really fun. You can really play around with doing this. This is called open shaded script. There's actually a term for this. And you can do it in so many different ways. So if you do have, I'll just color one and I'll kind of overcolor it with black. If you have, I know, Jana, you got some fun metallics. If you have metallics, this is where you can have some fun with them. I've got a great silver pen. This, you can get at just about any art store, the Osmer pens, or my favorites, these Molotov liquid chrome pens. These are the bee's knees when it comes to metallic silver. And here's where you can really, you can really have some fun, and you can throw in some really bright silver on there, which doesn't look like much until you start to flash it around a little bit.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is fun. And then you can also add, I really like adding dots. I call it the champagne effect, where you get this kind of fun dotted stippled texture to it. And it can have a lot of impact, especially if you think about what we're going to do next, is we're going to do a couple of gift cards.
Wonderful. Yeah, that looks beautiful.
Fun. Yeah, and it's really, really simple. It's really, really quick. And it's your handwriting with a little bit of extra pizzazz rather than doing anything too crazy. Okay, so I have a little sheet on here with some banners. And again, those of you who don't have the workbook, it's no big deal. These are really easy to draw. And I'll just, we'll draw a couple of really simple ones. And then I'm going to show you how to transfer those onto an envelope, which is this transfer tick. I think you probably do something similar with embroidery, but it's something you probably learned in kindergarten and completely forgot until now. So that's a lot of fun.
Okay, that's wonderful. Here we have a question from my friend, Jody.
Great.
Can you recommend a website that has different alphabet scripts that are easy to copy practice? And Jody just told me today or yesterday that she used to love calligraphy as a kid. And I think that's one of these examples of people maybe taking up hobbies again after so long. So do you have websites that come to mind? I
do. And actually on the back of the workbook, I have 3 that I really, really like, but I'll tell them to you right now. And one of my absolute favorites, she is a lovely person, and B, one of the most talented letterers out there, is Becca from the Happy Ever Crafter. And she's based in or near Ottawa, so she is homegrown, which is really nice. Becca does the most unbelievable tutorials on YouTube and on her website every week. And if you sign up to her newsletter, you get an awesome lettering tutorial in your mailbox for free every week. I mean, I've done this professionally for 10 years. I learned so much from her every time I see her on there. So she is awesome. The Postman's Knock is Lindsay. She's out of the US, and she has heaps of calligraphy and pointed pen, also some brush script, a little bit of filigraphy as well, which is that kind of pretending calligraphy that you can just do with your felt tip pens. She has a lot of those available on her website as well, and in her blog, some for purchase, some for free. And then Paper Ink Arts blog. These guys just have an absolute wealth of material in their blog from some of North America's and some international letterers and calligraphers as well. So super, super, super tutorials and ideas. And if you can't find enough there, please let me know, because I've got about a bazillion others. There are so many great hand letters around the world. And the nice thing is it's a really lovely community. So dive in, because people are really supportive and love to kind of share tips and ideas.
And I'm going to plug your website as well, because you're so modest, you forgot to. But also, please do check out Design in Words. And there's a newsletter that you can sign up for as well there that I've signed up for, and some downloadables too.
Yeah. And I do free workshops every month, and I do some paid workshops as well. So thank you for saying that. But I would love if I can plug what you're doing, if you can tag the Globe and Mail and at Design in Words with anything that you post. I would love to see the progress, because I can't see what you guys are doing. So I would love to see. I can see what Jana's doing, and you're doing great, by the way.
Thanks. If there's a Mike out there who wants me to mail this design of his name, I can throw it in the mail tomorrow.
Mike, this one's for you.
Yeah. So we have our banners.
Awesome. So banners, we're going to just do it. There's a couple here, and I'll just do a super, super simple one because we can put that on. I have some gift tags here. So we can put that on one of these, and I'll just start directly onto here. And then I'm going to show you how to transfer one of these onto an envelope. So you can actually trace these and do them from there. So we're going to choose this one. It's really, really simple, and you can do it with me. If you don't have a gift tag or something to draw it on, just do it on a piece of paper. It's an easy way to practice. I'll do it with my Sharpie. But consider you're going to up the game when it comes to gift giving this year if you are doing hand-drawn tags. I think I got a whole bunch of these gift tags. I think probably at the local art store, but you can get them pretty much anywhere. They're great. Even just pieces of paper. I have all these offcuts of random paper, and I hole punch them and make them into bookmarks, which, great for kitty gift bags and things like that when those times come around again.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the whole craft club is just so that we're all gonna like win at this next year. We'll just have been inside crafting and notebooks, embroidery, homemade gift tags, everything. Yeah.
Handmade Christmas. I love it.
Yes.
I love it. I'm so excited. Okay, so we're going to do a really simple gift tag, and I'll just get you to follow along with me. If you can see here, I'm going to start with a little curve and then a slightly larger curve.
Okay, a little curve,
so a little hook,
a larger curve,
and then I tend to turn it around because my hand works really well in one direction, but not great in the other direction. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to mimic that line and just go the other way.
So a little curve and then a big curve.
Great. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw these lines down the side. I'm going to connect those two. And it's okay if they're a little bit wonky. Remember, this is hand lettered, so that's totally fine. You got those connected. You can fill them out a little bit if you want to. And then we're just going to make that a little bit of fun. So we're kind of going to kick that out and make a little ribbon style.
Okay. I mean, this is perfect when we do the homemade self-tattoo class we have coming up in a few weeks, so we can.
That was the last surprise, wasn't
it? Yes. Surprise, homemade tattooing. Nice. Okay, so I'm connecting.
Mum forever. Great. So connect those. So there we go. We got our banner. Now we can, jazz it up a little bit. We can add some shading in here to the part in the back.
Okay.
And I'm going to add, because I messed up my line here, it's a little bit thicker. I'm just going to make a little bit of shading there as well, because, you can always fix things, right? Okay. That looks a little bit wonky, but that's all right.
Mine is looking a little bit rough at the moment.
It's you know what, if you think about it, that I'm looking at that and all I can see is those lines. But once you put a pretty bow on it and it's on a lovely gift bag, it's super, super simple.
Heavier. Okay, so we're putting in some shading.
And then because Mike is our buddy, I'm gonna make a gift tag for Mike, but you can fill in any name you like. I did a bunch for the holidays, which were joy, peace, love, things like that. So I'm gonna knock one out for Mike here. And again, I'm gonna do my calligraphy style. So I'll just write it out. And I do like to, especially when I'm doing something like this, I do tend to use a Sharpie because it shows up really nicely. It's indelible. There's so many different things. And that's when I go back and I do the calligraphy. So I just thicken up those downstrokes again.
I'm laughing so hard at how bad mine is compared to yours. But
stop.
I feel part of the crafting experience is to make peace with not doing everything perfectly. In my household, we've been watching the show Nailed It lately.
Yeah, it's great.
Quite hilarious and all kinds of failures. And I enjoy, as someone who gets obsessed with doing things perfectly, I actually enjoy this contrast between yours and mine that's happening right now. A note from Kat Sandy who says, this downstroke thickening is brilliant. It's compulsive. I'm going to do this with my shopping list now. It reminds me of bubble writing when I was a kid. Yes.
Right.
Bubble writing. Yes. Okay. That I can kind of do. Spend a lot of hours practicing. Or the ones where you, it was sort of like laser writing. It looked like it was coming from a fixed point.
And that is actually great. You can do that with 2 strips of tape. And then, you know, you can put your tape in and then you just print in between them. So super
Oh,
easy, guys. I mean, laser writing, bubble writing. Can we bring back the bubble writing? I would love that.
yes.
That would be so great. But it's so effective and it's so simple, but all of a sudden your lettering looks kind of next level. And then when you get in there with, you know, with our gift tag here, and we add a little excitement with our silver pen here, and I'm just doing really, really simple lines down my thickened part. And all of a sudden makes a whole lot more exciting.
So I, clearly placed the mic. So I am going to add a J here as though I am making it for Michael J.
Excellent.
Fox, who still I think is such a remarkable and crush-worthy person, admirable person. So yeah, we'll just pretend that this is for Mike J. It actually spaced out perfectly.
Amazing.
And then you're just sort of highlighting. Is that the downstroke highlighting
It's
as well?
just on the downstroke. Yeah, I've just made it a little bit thicker. And again, if you want to go in and you, as I said, I like to do these little bubbles. I like to do these little dots, and that creates that, the stippling just breaks up the color a little bit, and it makes it look a little bit more fun. So that's a fun thing to do. Going back to where you were with misplacing the letters, I do that all the time. I get my alignment wrong all the time, even though I lay it out meticulously. That's why calligraphy is so great, because a flourish never goes amiss. You know, we can also do, if you're in Jana's boat and you made your letter a little bit short, I'm going to do one here on the back, just really quickly, and we'll do the same thing. So this one's a little bit messy, sorry. I'll do it quickly. So if I did my mic here, whoops, I didn't even do mic, it looks like milk. So I've made mic a bit short, it's really quick, but then maybe I throw in a little branch, and Mike has a little holly branch if you've got holidays, right? So a little flourish goes a long way and hides a lot of sins.
Okay, that little holly branch is a great tip. Because
I'm going to show you some more. Yeah.
It could be tempting to be like, oh, this doesn't look perfect, chuck it and start again. Yeah. Although I do see already how if I did this again right now, it would look better than this one.
I feel it's the first one.
Yeah.
It's getting better. And I'll actually show you, because my best favorite trick is that I do a draft for someone and it looks amazing and I love it. And then I go to do it in real life and I can't quite mimic. You know, when you make that beautiful dish and you added some last minute ingredient and you can't remember what it is, or that, like, was it more salt? Was it more whatever? So my foolproof way to do this, I'm going to show you whenever you guys are ready. This is that kindergarten technique that I was telling you about.
Let's do it.
Okay, are you ready? I'm so excited to share it with you. Can you tell? Okay, so I'm going to take my white envelope here, and we're going to write this as an addressed envelope. But I'd really like to do, Jana, this one's going to be for you. So I'd really like your name to be written in this banner here. Okay. But I'm pretty certain that I can't recreate that banner on here without stuffing it up.
Right.
So, because I did this one so beautifully, thank you very much. It's going to be tricky. So what I'm going to do is, and hang on to your socks, Miss Dixon probably taught you this one originally. We're going to flip this over and we're going to use our lead pencil on the back. And we're just going to color that in the side of the pencil. Remember how you used to do like rubbings on rocks and things like that, or like pennies?
And we're doing the whole area where the banner is, not just the edges of it?
Exactly. Yeah, the whole area. You can just do the edges, but that often just takes longer. So I figure just, go for the full effect. It doesn't need to be too dark. It doesn't need to be too hard. You can always do it over, but I have so many sheets like this of templates, even letters that I really, really like if I've done a really fabulous flourished M or a P or something along those lines, I'll copy it and copy it over and over again.
This was also the trick in detective books when I was little. If you came in and there was a pad of paper where a note had been written, you did this to see what.
Oh, I like it.
I'm not sure it worked in real life, but it was a great twist in Nancy Drew.
I was about to say that's totally a Nancy Drew trick, isn't it? She was so resourceful.
So resourceful.
So resourceful.
Inspirational young woman.
Maybe I think she set the tone for MacGyver. So just putting it out there.
That's kind of
So with your envelope, now you want to make sure, and again, I've done this so many times, you want to make sure you've got it oriented the right way.
Okay.
So you're writing it so your flap is at the top. I tend to kind of hold these up and just make sure I've got the positioning right. You can, if you're doing something quite formal, you can actually tape it down, but we're just doing it by eye, so that's fine. So once we've got that into place, we're just going to press, not reasonably hard. You don't have to go to town or anything, but we're going to press reasonably hard and trace over our good copy banner.
Okay.
And this always, it takes a few minutes because you do want to make sure you're giving it enough time to make it really lovely. But using the lead pencil will make it a little bit easier. This is why mechanical pencils aren't super for this sort of thing. You do want that little kid style lead pencil. I'll have to remember to put this back in my daughter's pencil case by tomorrow.
I love pencils.
They're great. And I forget because I always use my fountain pen now.
This one was actually recently mailed to me through the mail from my cousin. It says Cousins Unlimited. She had some pencils made and sent them to all her cousins. So
see, isn't that great? Like, isn't this so nice? Now you can send her a beautiful card to say thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So I've traced it. I just demoned across.
Okay, now I'm going to give you this is the $1 million trick, right? Before you just whip it off.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that it's fixed in place with one finger, and then just have a little peek. And it's hard to see the contrast, but the reason you fix it in place is if you just whip it off and you have to fix something, it's really hard to do. But when we take it off, we have this beautiful, it's hard to see on mine, I think, but you can see this lovely faint banner that we've drawn. So that
is fantastic.
Isn't that? It's just the simplest trick. And so I was talking about Becca from Happy Ever Crafter. When she paints windows, she does this with chalk. So she has great big chalk covered designs and then transfers it onto the window and then draws from that. So there's so many different ways you can do this: large scale, small scale. It's awesome.
Fantastic trick. And
great.
We can just use our little eraser to clean up any schmutz.
Exactly. And remember, if you're going over, I love that you use that word schmutz. That reminds me of my mom. So what we can do now is maybe what we'll do is we'll just line up the rest of the address. So this is our fancy envelope. So I'm going to write some, because we've already got the pencil on there, I'm going to make some really, really light guidelines as to where I want the address to go. And I'm not going to, you can center this right underneath. I'm not going to say I never, I can get things very straight, but I think with something like this, sometimes it's just fun to do a little bit off center. So I'm doing it on the last third. And I am making my lines quite uniform in height. Because we've got all this lovely creativity here, but we do want, as we went back, we want the address to be legible, and we want it to be easily read by the computers at Canada Post. Now,
and this may be a simple question, but you're not drawing, when we were doing our practicing, we were practicing on 3 lines. Here you're just drawing 1 line per line.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, just the baseline. And often what I do, because we had that that question about spacing before, if I'm doing a right or left justified envelope, I'll usually just add a little margin on the side so I know where to start.
Right.
So I'm going to hold that up so you can see that a little bit. Can you see that a little bit more closely? Is it tricky to see?
It's a little bit blown out.
A little tricky to see. Okay.
When it's down, it might be
easier. I'll just do this over in Sharpie so you can see what I'm doing. How's that?
Okay. Yeah, that's a great idea.
So I would normally trace my banner in Sharpie anyway. So I'm just going to go over and trace that. And remember, if you don't trace your lines perfectly, like I did, I stepped up a little bit there, you can just erase them because they're pencil. And I think someone mentioned something about graphite pencils. Absolutely. Graphite pencils are great because they're nice and soft and can be easily erased.
So should I be tracing my scroll with this pen as well?
Yeah, sure. Trace your scroll with your Sharpie or with your black pen. And I'll make my guidelines. Actually, I'll just make them a little bit heavier with the pencil. That's probably a bit easier to see. There we go. I'm forgetting that I'm on camera. So there we go. So there are my guidelines. They're just a little bit heavier. Oops, they're a little bit wonky too. Apologies. That's okay. So I've done these so they'll be This is what happens when you write on an angle sometimes, but we can erase all of those. So in here, I'm going to send this to Jana. So I'm going to use a slightly finer pen, and I'm going to do my calligraphy in here. So we'll do Jana's name here.
So is there a trick to spacing out the person's name?
There is, and clearly I haven't nailed it.
Sorry, here's a question from Mary asking, is the banner just for the name? So yes, we're just going to be putting the name in the banner, right?
Yeah, the banner's just for the name. And that's actually a really good question, Mary, because one of the things that you want to make sure of is that the majority of mail sorting is done by computer, I believe, or by some electronic means. That's showing you how much of a hand person I am. I don't know exactly how, but I know it's not by hand. So you do want to make sure that especially the postal code is written really clearly, whereas the name in the banner can be a little bit more creative. So Jana had a great question where, how do you do the spacing? And clearly I haven't nailed it here. What I would typically do with an envelope, I would do it in pencil first. Just really light, like as I had the guidelines before, so you couldn't quite see them. I would do them in really light pencil and then erase after the fact. It gives you an option to, or an opportunity to make sure your spacing is correct, double check the address, you know, that you haven't written 196 instead of 169, that sort of thing. So then we're just going to go back in and we're just going to make our, you know, do our faux lettering in here in the banner.
And you're doing that with pen. So I've sketched in my cousin's name.
Oh, great.
So then should I go over it in pen now?
I would trace over it in pen. Yes, you were clever and you did it that way. So I think that's a great suggestion. And trace over it in pen. And then always make sure you give the pen, even though it is a felt tip pen, it feels like it dries right away. It's pretty important to even just give it 15 minutes, because the last thing you want to do is have this beautiful writing and then you go to erase it and it smudges everywhere.
Okay. Yeah. And so just for this kind of writing, just a thin Sharpie, do you recommend, or what should I be using? Yeah,
you can use anything. I'd probably have a little bit of contrast between the banner and the lettering. So a thinner pen is a little bit of fun. And because you have a little bit less space, also a great idea. If we were just doing these without an address and you didn't need to put a surname on it, you could just write it in a nice thick Sharpie and do it that way.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I do suggest with, especially with envelopes, you do want to make sure you're using a waterproof or archival style pen or marker. They do sometimes get wet, and you don't want the ink to run. So definitely no pencil for anything that has to do with the address or where it's going. And same ditto for anything. You want to make sure it's waterproof so it will stay intact. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to just, you can color, once you've done your calligraphy, you can do your same color techniques if you want. We can color those letters in a little bit to make it a little bit jazzier. So again, you can see it's a little bit kind of rough. It's not really perfect, but again, I think it adds that bit of charm. And I'll just do a little darker. You're going pinks and purples here, Jana.
Okay, perfect. Sometimes takes a little bit of thinking to remember how you did your downstroke or where the downstrokes go.
Absolutely. And it's not because we're not used to thinking about where we put our pens and how we shape our letters. It can be difficult to remember, and it's almost a strange thing to think about. You know, what have I done? Where was that?
What am I doing?
Yeah.
So this is going to be a problem next time I'm taking notes in court and I'm spending my time writing the person testifying's name in various pens.
Exactly. You'll get sidetracked with making it look really pretty. But just think about all those agendas and daytimers and things that you've left languish for years. I don't know, do people still use those, or is that just me? You know, or your shopping list. Who was talking about their shopping list, right? Beautiful shopping list from now on.
I love a shopping list.
Mm-hmm.
A little note.
Just make it that much prettier.
You told me the sweetest story, and I hope you don't mind me sharing with the group, but do you want to tell everybody about floor mail? I just love this.
I will tell you about floor mail because I'm hoping that somewhere in Europe my mom is, you know, up late watching. But my mom has, I should start by saying my mom trained in medicine, and her handwriting is, Jana, I mean, yours is like perfect calligraphy by comparison. I love my mom dearly, but only my sister and I can read it in the world. Otherwise it is like hieroglyphics. But my mom would always leave us notes on the floor. So a little note about what was going on that day, what was for our lunch, that she loved us, and she'd leave it on the floor outside of our room. And to this day, she does this, you know, and I'm grown and I have a child of my own, and now I leave floor mail for my daughter. So we leave little notes to each other back and forth. And it's yeah, it's just a nice tradition.
I just love it. I mean, imagine
Yeah.
right now, after we've pretty much been trapped inside with our families for a year and a bit, how nice to just wake up and find a little letter, you know, from
Yeah.
someone in your household. That's such a special little thing. It's
It's a
beautiful.
neat little thing. I have them tucked away. And again, they're, as I said, they're like hieroglyphics from my mom. So they're secret notes as well. There's a secret code in there. So I think we'll go down to this is one of the fun parts about lettering too. Like I know I've been talking just about one style of script, but you know, as you know, there are a million and one different styles of script. And one of the great places to get inspiration is from sign writing. So just shops on the high street, wherever, you know, I live just off of Queen Street, and there's still some amazing old hand lettering and sign painted. Anyone from Toronto will remember Honest Ed's, who had handwritten sign painters. And I mean, just totally awesome. So the one thing to think about is that contrast between the two different styles of handwriting or hand type. So here I've done a script, but for Jana's address, which just to be clear, I am making up. I have no idea what your address is. So, you know, no one's showing up at this address. I'm going to do a really simple style of block printing.
As soon
And
as
that's
we're allowed to have people in our houses, everybody's invited. Huge party.
to 123 Smith Street.
Yes.
There you go. But when we change up the type, it makes it a little bit more interesting. We get a few different shapes showing up here. We get a little bit of contrast, a little bit of interest. And because we are opting for a really clean, clear typeface for our address, a block print is great. Yeah.
I don't even know my cousin's address, but I can add it in later.
There we go.
I'll add the city in my best block printing.
Excellent. Oh, that looks great. Perfect. And I like how you space that out as well. And you've got a nice balance between the thicks and thins on there. So once we've written that out, again, we'll let that dry for a few minutes. We won't just dive in. But once we erase it, we have this really lovely envelope that, you know, doesn't come with a little window and some money owing that you get in the post, which is, you know, think about that joy, like when you were a kid and you got a postcard from somewhere, how exciting that was. So that's amazing. A really fun thing to do, right? So there's our challenge. Everybody has to send a postcard or a letter to someone this week.
One real mail and one floor mail.
Yes. Thank you. Please share floor mail around the world. I love that.
Love it.
I will show you one other really quick technique. So the same style that we just did with the tracing, you can do it, because that's one question that I get a lot, is what do you do about dark paper or dark envelopes, which look so cool. And chalk pens and gel pens, the metallic pens that you used, are absolutely awesome on dark paper. I have these Eddings paint pens, which are great. And they come up, I'll just use the back here, but they come up, this one's a little bit dead, but they actually come up really nice and bright and white on the paper. Posca, Posca, is a brand that you could buy in most art stores, and they're super for this sort of thing. But if you are going to be using a darker paper or a dark envelope for something, even craft cards, what you can do is you can use, I just have a really simple chalk pencil, and you can get these at just about every art store. You want to make sure it's not a pastel, because pastels can't be erased, but a white chalk pencil or a white graphite pencil. They're a little bit trickier to find. And I will draw my guidelines. Again, really, you can probably see these a little bit better, but really, really faintly on here.
And you're making those
And
diagonal, are you, on this one?
I am making these diagonal, yes. And I'm going to see if I don't have my, well, I'll do it with this kind of half dead pencil. I apologize. I have so many of these that I picked the wrong one, but that's okay. I'll do this one here, and I'll go back to our buddy Mike here. So normally that would be Mike Fox. Here we go. Normally that would be a little bit darker. If that was a new pen, that would be a little bit brighter. So you can actually go over them though if you need to.
Looks
so
great.
You can make those thick lines. But it really, really pops. And I mean, I think about one of an event that I did a few years ago when I was living in Amsterdam, which was awesome. And it sounds really cheesy, but it looked really, really cool, is we had black envelopes and a neon pink paint marker across the top, done in a really kind of quick script. And it was really fun. It was really springy, kind of really exciting thing to receive in the mail for some invitations.
I love that. It's just, it's interesting how dynamic it becomes just with the changing the color of the paper. It looks great.
Exactly. And it's super simple. And again, you know, here then we maybe do our, or if I have my, for those of you who are rating your tool sheds, we can also use our laser liner. This is where the laser liners are, and it's a little bit hard to see because I've got so much light, but this is where the laser liners are awesome because you don't have any need to erase any lines. So funnily enough, you and Mike Fox have ended up living together at 123 Smith Street.
My
Congratulations.
my itself would be extremely excited about this.
I know. And we'll just write in there. But again, we want to make sure that we keep that address really clean.
A question from Norm Wilson: can a white charcoal pencil work?
Yeah, a white charcoal pencil will work. I will say I've had some that have worked really, really well, and then I've had some that have smudged a little bit. So just make sure you try. And a great place to try, I know this sounds really simple and you're all probably like, yeah, I know. Just try on the inside of the flap because that usually gets torn anyway.
Right.
So that's good to remember. On the back of envelopes, if you are doing a return address, gel pens, just these really simple gel pens you can buy at Staples and stuff like that. Those work really, and again, these are all, oh, my pens aren't working for me, but they are great for, right, here we go. These are great for writing on the back for slightly smaller script, or for doing your block lettering on the front as well. So super simple tips there. And you can also go in with your metallics here. So just adding a little bit of extra excitement to your Mike Fox. The metallics don't look like they show up too well when you're actually doing them over your lettering, but when they catch the light, they look really beautiful and really stand out. So especially with gift cards and things, you can see that little bit of contrast there.
Well, this is wonderful. I see we're about 6:15, so I think we're probably wrapping up, unless there's any last minute tips and tricks that you feel you should be imparting before we wrap up for the day.
Can I show you one more thing? It's super quick.
Yeah.
I talk so much, so I apologize. I take too long.
No, I'm free till 2022, so this is basically.
So am I. So I just got these at the dollar shop. I don't even remember where or what city. And I apologize. The only small round thing I could find was a shot glass, so I'm just going to use that. But these are super for gift tags and little lovely things. So we're going to make a wreath, a really simple wreath. So all I'm doing with this is I'm just going to trace around this. I'm using my white gel pen. And I'm just making a circle that's not quite closed at the top. So I'm leaving a little gap at the top. And you can use any shape. I'm using a circle because I wanted to make a little bit of a garland, a little bit of a wreath. But you can really use any shape there. So when I take that off.
Oh, sorry. If we don't have this little thing that you have, this could just be done on a piece of paper?
Absolutely. Yeah, okay. You can do it on a simple gift tag. You can do it on a piece of paper. It can be really sweet if you just have a square of paper and you want to make that into a little gift tag, or even like paper labels. Right. If you cut those into squares, they'll be super cute. The other thing you can do is if you are doing any of the stuff and you particularly like what you've done, you can take a photo with your phone make it really high contrast, and then you can put it into Canva or something along those lines, and you can make a whole page of them.
Oh,
which is great. And then you can print off lovely gift tags.
Okay, so I've just drawn a little circle
okay.
here on my piece of paper.
Great. I'm mindful of being quick, so I apologize. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go around. We're going to use this as the top, the gap at the top, and we're going to add some little leaves all around. You don't need to overthink it. It can be really, really quick. So going in one direction and then going in the other direction.
Of course, drawing a circle, even when you have one to trace, is a little bit of a challenge.
It can be tricky. I've done it a few times, so bear that in mind.
Oh, darn it. I forgot to leave a little gap.
Oh, that's okay. If you haven't left a gap, that's totally fine. Just do your leaves all the way around.
Okay. So I'm doing some little leaves. Going to do them in my red Sharpie.
Great. And I'm going to add in a couple of, slightly longer leaves with any gardeners out there. I apologize. I know zero about gardening, so my leaves are some in nondescript plant. I'm going to add in a few more. You just kind of want to fill up the space, and you can add in any sort of, kind of description of a flower. So I like to do these little kind of holly bunches, which are quite cute. Or, what do you call them? The little things you blow off dandelions.
Those little dandelion puffs.
Yeah.
They probably have another name.
I like dandelion puff. I'm going to roll with that.
Puffy things.
And then a really cute way to do a rose is just to do a little swirl with kind of wonky edges. So it reads as a rose, even though it is very, as I said, any of the gardeners out there are horrified at the way it looks. But when you hold it up close, it's quite effective. And just because it's filled in, it looks quite pretty.
Oh, it looks beautiful.
Yeah, so then we can write, let's say we're making this to someone. So we'll do to, and we'll do our lovely fauxligraphy in here. I'm glad you have a short name. It's made it very easy for my spacing today, Jana. Thank you.
I am pleased.
There we go. I'll color this one in because I'm doing, this is actually, this is great. This is just a chalk paint. So gel pens work really well on chalk paint. A lot of people ask that. That's a great thing to use.
This looks fantastic. You're definitely winning Christmas if you show up with kits that have this on them.
Totally. It's so easy and it looks so cute, right? So there you go.
Here's a note from my mother. Who's a nursing teacher. She says, my students and I are having our supper break and dropped in for a few minutes. They are impressed by the calligraphy. So that's some nurses working in personal care right now. Hi, Mom. Hello, nurses. We love you all.
We do. Thank you from all of us for doing what you're doing.
She got her vaccine on Sunday, so one day soon.
Exciting.
We'll see each other.
Yeah. Oh, well, here's to that.
Well, this just looks so fantastic. I really appreciate all of these tips and tricks. I have a lot to work on, but I do feel like I have a plan of how to practice and something to aspire to. Thank you so much, Danielle. This was amazing.
This has been such a pleasure. I have so much more that I would love to share, but I promise I'll get that alphabet sheet to you so that everyone out there can do a little bit more practicing. I would love to see how you did, what you're up to. And I love the Globe Craft Club. So any questions, feel free to put them in there and I'm happy to answer. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And so thank you, Danielle. Thanks to all of you for joining us. It's always such a pleasure to just spend time crafting together apart, which is what we do these days. Thanks to Deb and Melissa for doing all of our technical thing. Just a reminder to sign up for our parenting and relationships newsletter to stay up on what we're doing in the craft club. And please get in touch, share your work. We'd love to see it. And we will look forward to seeing you on April 13th for Paper Flowers with Chantel Larocque. More information to come. And thank you, everybody. What a great evening. Take care out there. Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you again. Good night.